What's up, everyone, and welcome to Project X Talk Extra, your weekly podcast supplement from Project X Talk, where we cover news, games, or whatever else we feel like that didn't quite make the main show. I'm your host, Kevin, aka the Muffin Mon, and today I'm joined by the human alpaca himself, Tom. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Excited, pumped. Let's go.
And we have Mr. Physical Copy, Ethan. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Kevin?
I'm good. We just had a really good podcast with Ryan Turford. If you haven't watched that, go check it out. It's available everywhere. Really good show. Really good discussions over there. Loved having Ryan on. So that was awesome. But guys, we're here today to talk about a fun topic as Ethan vapes into the microphone.
My bad.
No, it's, listen, man. We make jokes. All right, this is our laxed show. Okay, we goof around. We talk about sleep schedules.
We get wacky.
Yeah, Project X Talk Extra. This should be Project X Talk After Dark. How about that?
We should rebrand.
There's our next show, guys.
Yeah, Gary can do everything then.
Just gonna be us swearing. It's gonna be my recorded gameplay from when we're playing games. This is me calling people Among Us. That's what it is. But no, actually, we're here to talk about if game reviewers should be required to beat their games. This has been a discourse going around on Twitter. If you get into those spaces about, specifically Elden Ring, people giving it 10 out of 10s and they hadn't beat the game, but we've seen this for other games as well. Reviewers, depending on when they get the game, might not have enough time. So should their reviews still be put out when the embargo lifts, or should they hold them? So I'm gonna throw it over to Ethan. What do you think about this?
Yeah, like I said on the podcast, I interacted a little bit with the community on Twitter. Timur Hussein came out, said that the Elden Ring review time was absolutely ridiculous. The embargo was ridiculous. They didn't give enough time for reviews. I don't think they should give them the light of day if they don't allow these journalists time to review the games. We always talk about crunch. We always talk about toxic workplace culture in the development side of video games. We need to start focusing a lot on how these journalists have to cram in a lot of time to get these review scores out, because the rat race to get review scores out is absolutely insane. You always want your review out to be the first one out, so that it gets the most clicks, gets the most views, and you get the most ad revenue. That's what pays the bills for these companies. So when companies like Bandai Namco say, here's an 80-hour game, you got to review it in a week, it's just absolutely ridiculous to me. And I think there absolutely needs to be a contingent of large reviewers like IGN, like GameSpot, like Game Informer, that come together and say, hey, this is unacceptable. We don't want to put our employees through this, because I've heard some nightmare stories about these embargo times, about these review times for these journalists. And it's really sad, because it reminds me a lot of the stories that came out with CD Projekt Red back when Cyberpunk was being developed, that these people were staying at work. They never could go home to their families. They would sleep at their desks because they just had to cram in the time to be able to get out these review scores, or in their case, to make the video game, even though it didn't come out very well. But yeah, I'm not a fan of how these companies are doing business with game journalists, even though they rely on them for these review scores. It's a symbiotic relationship between these two worlds. They benefit each other. And they should respect each other. So there's a lot that needs to change there. I think that's the next step in making our community and this whole world of video games more inclusive and better for workers.
Mm-hmm. Tom, what are your feelings on the topic?
So I liked Ethan's points. They were really good points. But I want to say, if you can't finish the game, then just do the review in progress and move along. That's it.
Right.
They're pressuring themselves into feeling they have to finish the game at that point.
That's more of a modern phenomenon, though. Like, that didn't used to be the case back in the day. I feel like I've only been seeing review in progress in the last couple of years. I don't remember ever.
If that last year probably is most prominent, but continue, Tom.
As far as like at the actual topic on hand, like, do they have to finish the games? I guess it depends on what we would define as what would be a completed game. So is it when the credits roll? For example, in a game like Gran Turismo, is it like getting first place on every track, getting all time trials completed? Some of these things can take ridiculously long times. Or in the case like Elden Ring, is it going through the main story bosses, or is it also doing all the optional side bosses as well?
Right.
So I guess it really depends on what we define as fully completed in game or completing a game, because I guess everyone has differentiating opinions on that. So I think reviewers just need to get a good grasp of the game. If it's a game with a story, for sure, you have to finish the damn game.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a game like a roguelike game where it doesn't really have a finished game, but it does have like an end boss, yeah, go do that. But there's no actual. You don't have to go through all forms of progression on the game. For example, like a game on Hades, you don't have to unlock every single item after you beat the game. So it varies a lot. I think, again, as long as you get a good grasp of what the game is, if it's a game that's a good narrative, if it's a narrative experience, as long as you have a good grasp of what that narrative experience is after you completed it, I think it's fine. But yes, for sure, these games need to be completed. Whether they do a review in progress at first, I'm fine with that. Until they actually finish the game, it's whatever. As long as they finish the game at some point and review it, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I think I'm in agreement with some of both of your points. I think that for certain titles, a review in progress is the way to go. Those live service games where like we saw with Witch Queen recently, where not all the content is dropped immediately, and the content that is there, like it's going to take time. Like you're going to need some time to actually go through the content. So for reviews like that, I think live service games, I think it makes a lot of sense to do reviews in progress. For games where you are given the game a week and expected to finish a 100-hour game like Elden Ring, I think it's a little. I understand why people put out their reviews. Like you said, they want the ad, they want the clicks, but I think it's okay. I think I'm okay with them not beating the game in that instance if you experience everything that not ever like do everything, but you experience what the game has to offer. If you explore, if you do side quests, if you do the main story, if you've experienced the hours of everything that the game has to offer in this big expansive world, I think then you have a understanding of if the game is good or not.
Right.
I don't think that just because you don't roll credits on Elden Ring before you put out your review is your opinion after 60 hours going to change because after you roll the credits? Most likely not. Most likely you're going to be like, I loved the experience of being in this world for 60 hours, whether it was exploring, whether it was the story. I don't think that changes after you roll credits. I do think for those shorter, maybe 10 to 20 hour games where it's heavy on narrative, a lot of the Sony titles, like if you were given Uncharted and then you tried to review Uncharted without finishing Uncharted, I'm not taking that review seriously. You need to have finished your job is to review video games. So I don't really feel like there are people doing crazy hard manual labor, and you're telling me you can't sit at your PlayStation for a few hours every day in the week. You're getting paid to do it. I understand that.
Right.
I'm speaking strictly for those smaller experiences. I'm not saying like Elden Ring put 12 hours a day into, like, that is a bit much. People have things they need to do. They have a life. But I think that brings up, and this kind of goes back to your point, Ethan, a bigger conversation about why aren't publishers giving games further out? Why aren't they giving reviewers time to actually experience the game? I know not everyone gets codes at the same time. Like IGN gets codes second, is my understanding, and Game Informer, I believe, gets them first about a month ahead of time because they're playing games before they even go gold. So they're playing some broken experiences because they need it for their magazine, which is getting written and published like forever ahead of time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So my understanding there is like their experience, they're going to be like, they always work under the assumption any bugs are going to be fixed that I experience. So when they review it, they're not really reviewing the same thing that we're going to review on day one.
Right.
So I understand everyone wants their review out in time, and like, listen, would I like to be part of the review process at some point? Yeah, probably. Like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a content creator's dream, right? Like you would love that. We've reviewed some indie games. Like I have an indie review tomorrow, but I've never worked under an embargo. Like I could have put my review up like last week for this indie game. They didn't tell me I had any restrictions, but I just want to see people given more time. Like Elden Ring, in what world is 1 week enough to get a review out?
It's
I
not
don't
possible.
understand.
It's enough time. It's enough. Like, here's my mindset though. Your job is to literally review this game.
For some people, you get
to sit down and have fun and play it. Yeah, but we're talking like the big.
Okay, but like,
is it fun when it's your job to do it? That's the thing. Like, I'm enjoying Elden Ring, but if I was forced to play it 10 hours a day, it wouldn't be fun for me anymore.
That's a dream. I keep
going back to Tamoor Hussain because he's the one that was the most vocal about this. I think when the review embargo lifted, he's a huge fan of Souls type games. Like that's his bread and butter. Like that's what he really attaches to. And he said a comment, I think it was on Kind of Funny Games Daily or something like that, where he said, I'm really sad that this is the way I had to experience the game because I did not play it the way I wanted to play it. It was not possible. And he said, thank God that none of my staff were the ones that had to do this, because he's kind of the head of the whole review department over on GameSpot. He's pretty much the head of the website. And he said, thank God I didn't have to put my staff through this, and it was me. So, I think that's kind of I guess that's a crazy example. It doesn't happen like that all the time. But it's a problem. And I don't think these reviewers can give legitimate reviews if they're being forced to play a game. It's hard to be objective when you're literally sitting down and you're just burnt out into the 20th hour and you have to go another 30 hours playing it.
No one's forcing them. That's the other issue I have with everything. It's like, I get the point. Everyone wants to be first. Okay. So, all right. So here's my favorite example. Angry Joe is legit my favorite reviewer. He never pushes a game on day one. You probably won't get a review till like 2 weeks afterwards.
So I was going to bring this. I'm glad you're bringing this up, Tom, because I was going to bring this. Like how important really is it to have a review day one? Because you see people like Video Game Donkey. He does reviews whenever the hell he wants.
A lot of views.
But here's the thing is the examples you guys are talking about, Video Game Donkey, Angry Joe, they're independent. They run their own YouTube channel. I think Angry Joe has some employees at this point, but his whole business apparatus isn't revolved around reviews like maybe a GameSpot or an IGN, where that's what makes them the most money. When you're doing a review for those bigger companies, that's what gives people their paychecks, their bonuses, their jobs. There's a lot of responsibility put on you to do these reviews. If you're Video Game Donkey and you've been doing YouTube for 10 years, you have millions of followers, and you're still just using a Blue Yeti and a 720p webcam like he does, he doesn't have to worry about other people. It's just his own passion doing it.
So if we take the big video game reviewers out of the conversation, if we take the IGN GameSpots out of the conversations, there are a lot of, fan sites, people that have working job, like Season Gaming, Ains, he reviewed Elden Ring. He has a full-time job, but there's other, like, there's just websites that get review codes, like I know Push Square is big, but I don't think they're like IGN big, or like, these types of sites that are fan run, that get these review codes because they get a lot of traffic, because they're the enthusiast press. That is what we'll call them, the enthusiasts.
I mean, we get codes,
Yeah, we get codes, but like not for crazy games, but we get a few indie codes,
a few every once in a while.
Yeah. So like, but if I came to you and I was like, hey, they gave us Elden Ring, you have 4 days to get your review out,
I would say no. We don't make money off of this. We all have our own professions.
Okay, great. So that's my point. Like, is it really the day one? Like, everyone else, none of the actual gamers are going to be playing the game before the reviews come out. So is it would you not be able to do just as well if you played the game along with everyone else and was part of that conversation while they were playing it? Like, hey guys, I'm reviewing the game, but like I just got it. We're playing together. How's your experience going? Let me in this conversation with you.
I do think that would be the best way to do it, but unfortunately, it's just the way the business model is set up. It's not possible for people to really do that. To get the most viewed YouTube video, of a review, you have to be one of the first ones. Nobody's going to watch. I mean, there are going to be people that watch, but there's going to be significantly less people that watch an Elden Ring review if it's out a month after the game comes out, because it's out of the news
Shout
cycle.
out our Elden Ring review.
I tried to write a review, but I only put in almost 40 hours, and I didn't think I had enough time in the game to actually properly review it, because it's such a big.
That's the video today. We're talking about beating games. You beat it first.
Gotta beat it. I gotta beat it. And yeah, going back to the point about whether you should finish a game, I do think you should finish the entirety of the story at least. To get the full comprehension. But I also do want to make a point, and studies have shown the vast majority of gamers don't complete games.
It's like 33% complete games, which
ridiculous.
Is mind blowing to me.
And I would say the majority of games that I start playing, I don't finish, and this is my passion, and it's not because I didn't like the games. It's just because I have other things I got to do. I can't sync. Not every game can be like Assassin's Creed Valhalla for me, where I'm sinking 140 plus hours into it. I can't do that with every game that comes out. So I have to be selective in what I do. So, that's another thing that we need to look at, is not everyone finishes games. So game reviewers, I think they could get away with probably releasing critic scores if they're only 3/4 of the way through a story. Because honestly, that's where most gamers are probably going to stop playing.
One other option they have is impressions. I know, Tom, you're a big, you always tell me, like, put on an impression video maybe instead of like waiting for a review. You've said that to me multiple times. Why don't we see more impression videos? I think Mr. Matty Plays was the only one I saw that labeled his an impression of Elden Ring.
Yeah, and I think an impression could be a really good replacement for an actual review. Because I think impressions still it still gives you the reasoning, and how you feel about the game and your expectations of the game, and you can still feel excited for it and recommend it in that aspect, but not have to feel like you label it as a review. And honestly, that's just like the big reviewers' faults. That's IGN's fault. That's GameSpot's fault. Game Informer. If you guys want to restrict yourself into that review format, and you're going to complain about it, then your business model sucks, and you need to change it to something else completely different.
And that's a great point, because the way reviewers play games is vastly different than the regular player. They're playing games alone. They don't get to go and look up guides. They don't get to go talk to the community on Reddit. They don't get to explore things with other people. Like in Elden Ring, you don't get to review the messages if you're reviewing this game before it came out. You don't get to play co-op with other people a lot of times. There's a vastly different way that these guys play games, because they're playing it before anyone else. Nobody has access to this game except for them and a select few of people. And then us, on the other hand, when we're playing it day one, the millions of people that are playing these games are all playing it at the same time. The internet is on fire. It's a buzz. People are talking about lore. People are, exploring and just communicating with each other. And that's a huge part in what makes a game popular, is its community. It's hard to objectively review a game if you're not, they're part of that community, obviously, the people who review these games, but they're not actively participating in it when they're reviewing them. They're just alone in a dark room, bloodshot eyes staring at a screen, trying to type up a script so that you can get clicks. It's just not healthy, and I don't think it's a good representation of games usually.
I think that's a underrated point, that they have a completely different experience than we do. Monarch, I know I've talked about it, but like if people hadn't reviewed the game and there weren't like guides up for it, how long would it have taken me to figure out those puzzles that I was stuck on? Like
you would have never finished a review, bro.
I tried those puzzles for a good 20-30 minutes, and before I was like, all right, I gotta Google these, because I was like, I'm not wasting my time because I know the answer is out there. If I was reviewing that game, I don't know when I would have figured out the puzzles. Like in what,
Right.
how many more hours would I have? And that would have, frustration, and that can impact your experience with the game. If you give a score, your experience is impacted by the way you play it. So that's a great point.
Yeah.
Anybody got anything else before we wrap up? I think we had a great discussion here.
Absolutely.
That's a long extra.
It's a
good one.
if you guys like it, make sure to like, share, subscribe. You can head over to patreon.com/projectxtalk to get all our content early. You can join our Discord. It's down in the description. We would love to chat with you. But time for plugs. So Ethan, where can people find you?
They can find me at WhiteCedarOne on Twitter and Gravy3448 on Xbox. Let's play some games.
Tom, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Alpaca Tom.
And you can find me at the Muffin Mon. That's a 1 instead of an I and an O instead of an A. Also follow us at Project X Talk to stay up to date with all our latest videos. But we will see you guys next Monday with another Project X Talk Extra.